Uncensored crossover episode. Welcome,
Hi.
Jordan. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I feel fortunate to be here. I love your podcast.
That means a lot because, it just means a lot that people like our podcast and we love yours. So, Jordan is with 805 Uncensored, and we're all on the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network together, and that's how we've kind of met each other. And before we get into things today, I wanted to say happy birthday to Kate.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
It's your birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome, Jordan. And tell our listeners a bit about 805 Uncensored and like a little bit about you and, you know, why you reached out to us.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Jordan. I host the 805 Uncensored with my two co-hosts, but it's just me today. Cami, call me Mommy on Instagram, and Heather
Yes.
Schmidt. Politically, I consider myself an anarchist, specifically an anarcho-communist. I started the podcast on my own at first in 2019, and then fast forward to 2020, the pandemic, and all the events that followed that. I just had so much to talk about, and it really took off from there. And I've been fortunate to be able to collaborate with great people like both of you, and just all these amazing free thinkers and podcasters and content creators of all sorts from around the world.
Yeah.
And the podcast specifically is related to all things anti-capitalism. So we talk about music, we talk about art, philosophy, psychology, politics directly, because as you know, capitalism relates to everything. And
As much as people don't like to say
that.
yeah, and I would say that I've just got a tremendous amount of intellectual curiosity. So I like to dive into a number of different subjects.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that's why we vibe, because even though, I mean, our podcast is kind of focused on like the feminine side of things, we want to cover all the topics too. It's always, I mean, life is political as much as people don't want to acknowledge that. So, I mean, music, art, so I think this is going to be a really great connection. I'm excited for this episode today.
Yeah, me too. I don't remember exactly how I came across your podcast, but I was really fortunate to have done so. And I'm a big history buff, so I love listening to all the stories about the various women that you cover.
Yeah. I love learning about it. I know the whole experience for me has been kind of an awakening. Like I was always I was always a socialist, not realizing it. And then like, you know, I studied sociology in college, so you can't come out of that.
Yeah.
It's definitely been more of a progression since we started the podcast. I've become way more radical.
Yeah.
So it's been fun.
When I was a teen, I was a little punk, little shit ass punk, and all about anarchy and
And anarchy isn't disorder, and that's the best thing about it is people just automatically think that everyone's running amok, and it's not.
No, it's actually highly organized.
Yeah, and like in a good way for the common good, and
it's the natural tendency of things. Like we're not supposed to have hierarchies. We're not supposed to have rulers. We're not supposed to have any oppressive forces of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
There is no king.
Ugh.
No gods, no masters.
No gods and masters. Hell yeah. Just the one thing I wanted to mention before we like really got into our series today, because Jordan reached out to us to do a series on badass women who fought the Nazis, and we couldn't say no, obviously, given the current climate. So, but before we do that, I just want to ask all of our listeners to, I've shared stuff to both my personal Instagram as well as the podcast Instagram about Mahmoud Khalil, who's been wrongfully imprisoned by our shitty ass government. I want everybody to take the time to please contact your reps, write your reps. We have information which will be in the show notes, but also head to our Instagram because we shared that. It's the same number we tell you to call every time we tell you to call someone. So and also if you're in New York, let's tell Chuck Schumer and Kristen Gillibrand to get the fuck out of our government, because Yeah. We're not cool with that continuing resolution passing either. So,
Well, we're not doing too much better in California. We have Gavin Newsom.
dude, what the fuck? Talk about like, I mean, even worse than Schumer and Gillibrand, I'd say. Like that's a disappointing thing I saw. Like I was kind of pissed at him anyway with the way he treats the homeless population, but then going on fucking Charlie Kirk and shit. Like, what the hell?
Jello
Yeah.
Biafra for governor.
Yeah.
It's just obvious to me that all he really cares about is the Silicon Valley billionaires. And so
Yeah.
it's clear to me that they're telling him that he needs to cozy up to these outward fascists. I say outward because Gavin Newsom I consider a fascist as well, but it's a different breed of fascism.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is there's fascism on both sides of the political spectrum. Like people just think because someone's a Democrat, they might be somehow better. And if we've learned anything in the past year and a half, that's not the case.
Well, since freaking
2016,
yeah.
I would say, when I first got into politics. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you know about Skid Row in Los Angeles, but
yeah.
Oh, I know a lot about Skid Row.
Yeah.
yeah, this fucking guy, Gavin Newsom, was literally just strolling through there with a latte with the police as they were locking up homeless people.
Yeah. Yeah. And every time they do these horrific sweeps of these homeless encampments, they're not like giving a people a chance to just like go somewhere else or even take their things. Like they treat these people as criminals.
They're taking all the property that they
Yeah,
have.
they take all of their like belongings and just throw them away. So these people are like, they're having their fucking like legal documents taken away. So even like their license, I've learned, like birth certificates, like
That's so fucking ridiculous.
Which, given how things are going, that's a really easy way to get people to, I don't like imprison people. Like, oh, you don't have an ID? Who says you're even a citizen here? Like just stupid shit like that. And
in Finland, they don't have a homeless population because instead of spending all that money that they would use on police enforcement and taking people down, they have like small apartments that they can keep them in, and they have counselors.
Yeah.
So it'll like the counselor will help them do like a vocational therapy thing and get them a job and help.
Yeah. Which is how we should be helping people, but
yeah,
God forbid.
I'm sure it's a lot cheaper too.
It's always cheaper, but they don't care about that. They say
no, because unhoused people are looked at as an eyesore. Like, I don't care about solving the problem. I just don't want to see the people.
It's an inconvenience. Oh, you broke up a little.
Okay. Oh, I said, yeah, it's like, it's viewed as an eyesore. Like, I don't care about solving the problem. I just don't want to see the people.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I was reading something that was so insane. This woman had crocheted like 100 blankets to donate to LA fire victims. And then when she found out that the blankets were going to go to the unhoused, she took them away and was like, oh, I don't want them to go to. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, first off, people lost their homes in LA. So what is that even to like?
People are stupid.
Like the definitive thing, like, what are you going to do with those 100 crocheted blankets now? Like, what a bitch.
That's so fucked up.
People are horrible. And like this, because of the job I've worked for so long, which I don't speak on a lot because technically I can't and shouldn't. But I've seen how easy it is for somebody to fall into homelessness and how easy it is for somebody to have their house taken away. And you're like one bad injury, one bad illness away from being homeless most of the time in this country. Like you're far closer to being homeless than you are to being a billionaire.
Yeah, especially in the US. This is a perpetual cycle of poverty. And it's by design. You know, this doesn't happen by accident. This is the way that the system is supposed to work.
Yeah. They want to keep people lower and they want to keep people uneducated too. So
yeah, like I could go on a whole rant about Southwest's new change to charging for bags. And the reason So they knew that they were going to lose money by implementing that policy. They didn't care
Yeah.
because they're just going to appeal to the top 10% of people that don't care about paying excess baggage fees, that are going on like
Yeah.
international flights and shit like that. And that's enough of a profit margin for them to just say fuck everybody else.
Exactly. I
Mhm.
mean, in the grand scheme of things, giving us universal health care is cheaper than us being like in these insurance programs,
Right.
but it's about capitalism.
Yeah.
It always
Yeah.
is.
Only way to make money.
So,
We have a sick care
yeah, as we
system.
always say. So yeah, today I'm really excited. I think we should probably talk about what we're going to be talking about the next few weeks. So Jordan reached out to us and wanted to do a collaboration about women who fought the Nazis. And like I said earlier, like, how could we say no? And so yeah, today we've got some really awesome bad bitches to go over. And I want to commend Jordan on finding us some really great bad bitches to look into. I don't think any of these women were on my list, so I have a very long list.
Yeah.
I've been having like a very inspirational time looking into my bad bitch that we'll talk about next week. But tell us what you have for us today, Jordan.
Yeah, so I am going to be presenting on the Oversteegen sisters, Freddie and Truus Oversteegen. They were Dutch resistance fighters that literally lured men into the woods, Nazis, and killed them. You know, using their looks and their sense of innocence, I suppose,
Yeah,
um, to be really resilient, strong resistance fighters against some of the most evil people that have ever walked the earth.
yeah, yeah. And who are like these people? This is a really important story because
People don't
history
understand.
repeats itself, as you can see in
Yeah.
our country. And yeah.
So, you want me just to dive into it then?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. Unless there was like something else you wanted to
I guess,
talk about
um,
before we get into it.
yeah, I guess just for contextual purposes, because I think this is kind of cool. I'm actually living in Europe right now. I live
Oh
in
yeah, I
I
meant to
live in
mention that.
Poland,
Yeah.
Wow.
which is obviously home to multiple concentration camps and was occupied by the Nazis.
Mhm.
So I think that
Yeah,
that's an interesting perspective that correlates well with this story.
I agree. And it must be an interesting experience being there right now because I know like the United States unfortunately is a very I don't like Europe
Toxic
is
place.
impacted, but the whole world is. So
yeah.
it must be really interesting being in Poland right now, like maybe seeing how they're looking at us.
It is so for multiple reasons, right? Because they're looking at the U.S. They're also looking at what's happening with the war between Russia and Ukraine, and how the United
And then
States.
Germany's pretty crazy right now too.
Yeah, and then you also have the Palestine conversation as well. Like,
Oh yeah.
there's a lot going on here. I would say that
Yeah, I wonder.
people are
Oh,
very much
sorry.
on edge.
Yeah, I
Wow.
can imagine, especially being so close to what's happening with Russia right now. That must be really scary. It's scary for us, and we're across the ocean as much as Trump
So
wants to make it seem like it doesn't matter.
yeah, they've effectively implemented a draft here in Poland. So I think as of
Mm.
last week, all adult men were required to report for military duty.
Oh,
Oh,
wow. That's
oh my
crazy.
God.
So they're preparing on a full-on Russian invasion.
I don't
Wow.
blame them because that's what I see coming,
Wow.
unfortunately. And, I keep what's odd about this moment, like all the little like weird places that I don't know, Trump has his hands in. I mean, I keep thinking about that Netflix movie that came out like a couple years ago or something. And what was it? Like Leave the World Behind. And it was like in different parts of the states, all these pamphlets were like thrown down in different areas, but they were all in different languages. Some were in Russian, some were in Arabic, some were in like Chinese. And the whole point of it was like nobody really knows how everything went down, because, and it's interesting to see because we have Trump kind of poking the bear with all these countries now.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know, for me, I'm getting like weird in my head where I'm like, oh my God, it's like one of those weird moments where art sort of imitates life. Like, no, we're not having pamphlets thrown down at us, but there's a chance that like any of these countries now could, you know, I don't expect China or Iran to do anything like that, but Russia, like, ugh, I don't know. It's scary. And then we're also occupied by Israel. So
Yeah. There's that.
a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, here we go. You want to get into the Oversteegen sisters?
Yeah, let's do it. So like I said, their names were Freddie and Truus. I'll begin by talking about Freddie because she was kind of the leader of the sisters. Freddie Oversteegen, she was just 14 when she joined the Dutch resistance during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. And I'm going to use Dutch, Holland, and the Netherlands interchangeably because we're all talking about the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that this story starts is they would take advantage of these lustful men at bars. And they were teenagers, and so they would go in and use their innocent looks to promise these men that they would have a makeout session in the woods. And so they would ask their victims if they wanted to go over for a stroll. The men would never return.
Nice.
Freddie is credited with the deaths of multiple German soldiers and traitors during the war. And so how did she do this? Primarily by wearing her hair in braids.
What was that?
Primarily by wearing her hair in braids, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice to have the tables turned.
Yeah, have somebody else tell us about it. This is nice.
No. Have a guy come in, or have a woman come in and steal a guy instead of the other way around.
Girls are. I love that though, because in a way, it's like, I mean, look at how easy men can be misled.
Yeah.
Not to be a dick.
No, we're stupid.
Yeah. I mean, we say it all the time, but it's good coming from a guy. Like, you know, it is. It's easy. I mean, some women are also very stupid too. So that's another story.
So, ultimately, this was a gang of 3 women. And so we're going to be presenting on the Oversteegen sisters and then later on Hannie Schaft. Hannie Schaft was the oldest of the 3. So there were 3 young women. They sabotaged and assassinated soldiers and traitors during the Nazi occupation. And the others were Truus and Hannie. Hannie was known as the girl with the red hair. And the reason that she
was, next week.
Yeah, and the reason that she was more well known and taken seriously was because she was older.
Yeah, which is weird because these young girls kind of did the same thing. So
yeah. But this was another reason why they were recruited for the resistance, because it was an ingenious scheme. They took advantage of them being teenagers, knowing that the Nazis wouldn't take them as seriously and wouldn't suspect them as being resistance fighters.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I just have a brief tweet that I'd like to read. It says, Freddie Oversteegen, a Dutch girl who was the unsuspecting killer of dozens of Nazis, along with her friend Hannie and her sister Truus. The girls worked with the team from the Dutch resistance to lure men into the woods for a promised kiss. The men would get a bullet to the head instead.
Yeah. I love that. Right. Now, I just think about like, oh, so did they just like leave the bodies and come strolling back into town? Like,
yeah.
Or did they try to cover them up or anything?
No, to my knowledge, they would kill them and leave them in the woods.
That's amazing. All right, bye.
Bye.
So, a little bit of background. Freddie and Truus actually grew up in a communist household. Freddie was born in 1925. She initially lived on a barge, which is a long boat with a flat bottom, with her family in Schotten in the Netherlands. Freddie and Truus's parents...
You never run on a
barge. The Truus parents raised them to be a force of resistance from a young age. Her parents actually had hid Lithuanian refugees in the hold of their ship before the onstart of the Second World War.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and the family also would later hide a Jewish couple in their home in the 1930s.
Good people.
Hmm.
Sounds like she was raised by some awesome people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
definitely
everybody, but
humanitarians. Um,
yeah.
Unfortunately, the parents did ultimately divorce. When that happened, Freddie and Truus's mother taught them communist principles. Given the principles the sisters were taught, it should come as no surprise that they resisted the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands.
Yeah.
It was dangerous and subversive work, and when the Nazis invaded, they made sure the refugees they'd been hosting were sent away, fearing they'd be discovered because of her family's known communist leanings. And many were subsequently deported and killed, and this stirred a fire in Freddie and Truus.
Understandably,
Mhm.
I understand that fire.
Yeah, so they saw what was happening to women, children, and all kinds of people in their home country of the Netherlands under the Nazi occupation. And so this really inspired them to take an effort in the resistance movement. But this was before a formal conversation even happened for them to be recruited. So the wheels are already spinning in their head, and they're already getting radicalized
Yeah.
before they have a formal recruitment into the resistance.
Yeah. Yeah. That's lovely. I don't know. I had to teach myself all this. I was not raised by
teaching down from generations is nice.
Yeah, yeah. Having wise elders is a blessing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'll talk about their work with the Dutch resistance and how this came to be.
All right.
So when the war began, Freddie and Truus they handed out anti-Nazi pamphlets on the streets, and this act caught the attention of Frans der Wiel. He was the commander of the Haarlem Council of Resistance in the Netherlands. He came to the Oversteegen residence one day and asked the sisters directly if they would be willing to join in the effort. He hoped that their innocent looks would help the resistance. And again, Freddie's only 14 years old at this point.
Yeah. Think about me at 14. Like,
Oh no.
I mean,
I would have gotten myself shot.
yeah. I mean, or, been one of these girls and just shot them first.
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't even have thought of this. And but I guess when you're in that situation,
yeah,
all
it's
you
totally
can think
different
about.
when you're witnessing it. And,
Right.
Yeah.
So der Wiel spoke to the Oversteegen's mother and asked permission. And the Oversteegen's mother made the girls make one promise, which was to always stay human.
Mm.
So, under the conditions of that promise, they joined the resistance that der Wiel revealed, and then der Wiel revealed the plans for the two sisters. They were
All right.
instructed to sabotage bridges and railroad lines. Truus said, "We told him we would like to do that," and the girls followed through. They blew up bridges and train tracks, but they also smuggled Jewish children out of the country and out of concentration camps.
That's awesome. I love that. It's like it's funny. It kind of reminds me of like the Underground Railroad over here.
Yeah.
How people escape slaves. Yeah, all of this was illegal too. So it's the whole idea of getting like comfortable with doing these things and not caring that you're breaking the law.
Right?
Because it shouldn't be. It's resistance.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what do you have to
Defending
lose?
your own. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like if this is what's happening, like, and it's the whole idea of like they're eventually too. Like people like to think that they're safe, but no one is ever actually safe.
When you got nothing to lose.
Right? So the sisters, they had never held a gun. They were just young teenagers, but they were instructed they must learn to shoot and to shoot Nazis. So how could young girls manage to commit such an act? Freddie described their motivation years later by writing, "While we were biking, we saw German soldiers picking up people from the streets, including children, pushing them up against a wall and shooting them. This arose such an enormous anger in me, such disgust, a feeling of those dirty bastards. At that moment, you're just a human being confronted with something very cruel. If you experience something like that, you find it justified to act against it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same like when you see, videos from Palestine right now. It's like, how can you not care? And like just watch stuff like that and not do anything. Like the idea of like just letting somebody dehumanize somebody in front of you. It's like, how can you not do something?
Right. So once she wrote, once I was confronted with an SS soldier, a Dutch SS soldier even, who was killing a small baby by hitting it against a wall. He grabbed the baby and hit it against the wall, and the father and sister had to watch. They were obviously hysterical, and the child was dead. I shot that guy right there and then. That wasn't an assignment, and I don't regret it.
Oh yeah, man.
Ugh.
Yeah, so
I would have
she's
shot him too.
yeah,
That
she
is
sees
torture
this.
there.
This isn't part of the resistance at all. But she
Yeah.
is obviously infuriated by this and just probably has feelings that we're not even able to properly articulate. And she shoots and kills him
Yeah.
on the spot. And this is a Dutch Nazi collaborator. So to be clear for your listeners,
Yeah.
the Oversteegens didn't just kill German Nazis; they also killed Nazi conspirators, people that conspired with the Nazis,
Yeah.
including in their own home country of the Netherlands.
Good.
Good.
Because they're the same. They're all Nazis. Doesn't matter if they're German.
Yeah. A Nazi's a Nazi.
Yep. The only good one is a dead one.
Is a dead
That
one.
one.
So
Oh man.
the next part is they actually utilize bicycles to carry out these assassinations. Truus recalled that he also told them they would need to learn to shoot and to shoot Nazis. I remember my sister saying, well, that's something I've never done before. Freddie would be the first of the 3 women to carry this act out. So she was just a teen when she first assassinated someone. In an interview with the BBC, her son speculated that her first victim was a Dutch woman who planned on handing over a list of Jewish people to the Germans.
Yeah.
She approached the woman in the park, asked her for her name to see if she had the right person. Freddie was quite small and wore her hair in 2 braids, which made her look innocent and enabled her to get away easily. Her method of attack was often a drive-by. Truus would cycle a bike whilst Freddie sat on the back and would shoot.
Nice.
Shot. That's
Like bam, bam, bam.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love, like, I know we kind of mentioned the braids when we were talking about setting up this whole thing. Like, as
Yeah.
women, the power of the braids, like, if you've worked in the service industry or, anywhere where your hair's in braids, gets you extra tips.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah, why
a
is
weird
that? Can you
kryptonite.
talk more about that? Why does that
Like,
exist?
so many men are like younger girls.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the whole youthful thing. There might be, I mean, it might be dirtier. Like people like to call them handlebars sometimes.
Oh
or
my
something.
god.
But, yes.
I mean, I'm sure
I've heard this.
people have thought that. Like, oh, I'm gonna tip her more because
But it is. It's an innocent thing. Like it's like it makes you look like a younger, more innocent girl. Like I haven't had that experience in a long time because like I don't work in those type of industries anymore. But yeah, I don't know what it is. Men just think it just makes you look innocent. It makes you look, I don't know, like they can
push you around a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. You have to ask more men about that. What's your thing with pigtails, dude? Oh,
Yeah, it's weird. So she goes on to say that we always went by bike. We never walked, and that because that was too dangerous. I always made sure the coast was clear, and that worked out very well.
Hell yeah, working together. I love that they were on bicycles. It reminds me of Luigi.
Yeah.
Or
or
should I say the CEO killer? Not Luigi. Because he's innocent. But yeah, like how he got away on a bike. Bikes are,
Bikes are
great for the
revolutionary.
environment.
Yeah.
Easy way to get away quickly because you're not stuck on roads either. Like you can take all the weird phase and get out quick. So
too.
it's a smart way to do it.
So when she was asked about the attacks against soldiers and collaborators, Freddie described them as a necessary evil. However, the 3 women assassins did have to draw the line at one point. So, this is keeping the promise that they made to their mother. The resistance had asked the women to help take the children of a senior Nazi officer hostage. They planned to exchange the children for captured members of the Dutch resistance. But if the negotiations soured, they would have to kill them. Remembering their promise to maintain their humanity, they said, "We are no Hitlerites. Resistance fighters don't murder children."
Yeah, agreed. Kids are innocent. It shows the difference, you got people who don't see like Palestinian children as like human.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the same vibe in fucking Nazi Europe. So
the mafia can kill women and children.
Yeah, like it's I don't know. It's definitely like attacking the women and children is definitely a form of ethnic cleansing. And not that all women are innocent, because we know women can just do as crazy atrocities as men too. Maybe not to level, but killing a child that would be dehumanizing for yourself. Like I feel like making that decision would be like, oh, I've just crossed that line. So I commend them for not allowing that to be, part of their legacy.
Yeah, and so that's really what they did. They did sabotage of infrastructure, and they would take advantage of their innocence, lure these killers into the woods, and whack them.
Yeah.
And so once the war was over, Freddie remained the quieter of the 2 Oversteegen sisters. Truus became an artist and lectured about her time in the Dutch resistance. And now
That's
here is where we get into some serious misogyny. So it was only in 2014 that Freddie was really recognized for her efforts. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. Yeah, so decades and decades after the war.
Yeah.
The Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte awarded her and Truus the Mobilization War Cross.
Oh. I've never heard of that, but it sounds like it's a nice.
Yeah. This is a heroic medal in the Netherlands.
Aw. Well,
her
good
son,
for them.
Yeah.
Gillis said it took till 2014.
And she's probably been erased already from the last couple months. They're just taking all like historical women and army.
Oh yeah, I mean
women off of websites and taking their pictures down and shit.
Well, that's American women. I think at least.
Yeah.
Hopefully in Holland there's still.
Okay. Yeah. True that.
They don't want to. I don't know. They can't stand it when women create anything these days. But anyway,
wow.
Yeah, we have a separate conversation about the new era of misogyny that we've entered into. But yeah. It certainly relates, and I'll actually talk more about that later on. So her son Remy described the moment as a highlight in his mother's life. Streets in Haarlem, so that was their hometown, Haarlem in Holland. Were even named after Freddie and her sister.
Aw, ouch.
In an interview with Vice, Freddie said that once the war ended, she coped by getting married and having babies.
It's one way.
But it's deep the fuck down, and it's a trauma response.
Yeah. It's kind of focusing on like something else and putting all your energy into that and just like pushing all that over there. Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah, and her son said that the war never stopped for his mother.
Oh my God, I bet.
The war, so it says he claimed that the war lasted 80 years for Freddie.
Aw, yeah, she never was able to like truly disconnect from that.
Yeah.
And like doing that stuff at 14, like we're all like, oh, like good for her. But it's also like, this is a child.
It's
who was carrying out like
You are not
executions of people. That changes you.
Weren't able to have like a normal childhood.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like a normal 14-year-old girl should just be having fun with their friends and going to the movies and all that shit. And nope.
And I'm sure she had a lot of survivor's guilt too, seeing people that were kidnapped and taken away and were killed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And just like witnessing violence.
Right.
Just that in itself, like, sticks with you.
Yeah, I can't even fathom how much PTSD she probably had.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know much about like even my Nana. She grew up in London and she went through the bombing of London and everything. And she didn't immigrate to the States till like years after World War II. So even that, like, she not like it's just something you never forget. And then you think about like how trauma is passed down through lineages and genetics. So it's just people don't even always know like what's affecting them, or like, people are like, oh, children are resilient, they'll get over it. And it's like, no, children shouldn't see those things.
Nobody should really, but especially children. Yeah.
I mean, no one should, but especially kids. Like,
so Freddie expressed a similar sentiment when she was speaking with Vice about conversations that she had with her sister. We never had to say remember because it was always at the top of our minds.
Yeah.
So Freddie served ultimately as a board member on the National Hannie Schaft Foundation, which was established by her sister Truus. In 2014, Freddie and Truus were awarded that medal by the Dutch Prime Minister. And Freddie's major complaint was bigger than of her own story. Despite the dangerous and important work women like Hannie, Truus, and Freddie did during the war, they were still not honored in the way that men had been. And this is what I mean by the misogyny. So she said, women don't count. Freddie elaborated, they still don't. That hasn't changed.
Yep.
It says, after 80 years after the end of World War II, while we're still fighting for gender equality and wars are raging like never before, something is markedly different. There's a desire to unite, combat injustice, and strive for enduring peace, and there are more young women on the front lines. That's partly because an entire generation of girls grew up in a world less dominated by men and more populated by the stories of heroes like Hannie, Truus, and Freddie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's why we started the podcast. It's like these stories of women, and like we also covered, all genders technically, but like especially women in the LGBTQ plus community, they just want to erase it. And it's always something where that's why we're always fighting for it. Like people are like, why are you so loud about it? And it's like, because we still have to fucking fight to get acknowledged for.
And these stories are being erased and put on the back burner. So
so we're especially, that's why we started the podcast, because these people need, people need to know these stories so that, it's not just like we know that we can fight, or whatever it is.
And it gives people hope.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I hope so.
As I was like researching Hannie for next week, it's just like, wow, what a badass. Like, and again, you think about like, what the fuck was I doing when I was 14? What the fuck was I doing when I was 23? Not being a resistance fighter. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like power of women, I think, is just always beautiful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So Freddie ultimately passed away on December 5th, 2018, which was one day before her 93rd birthday. And Truus passed away on June 18th, 2016, when she was 92. I found this fascinating that they were both 92 when they passed.
Yeah. Did you look into the numerology of 92? Maybe we should have.
No, I didn't. That's a good point, though.
Yeah. Oh, well, may they rest in peace. Wow, they lived long lives too.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, do you have anything else you want to say about that before I talk about some recommended texts?
No, go right ahead. Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a big sources person. I really like to crunch numbers and data and read a lot. So I always think it's important for people to look towards other resources.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
a couple of books that I would recommend are Sophia Polderman's Seducing and Killing Nazis, Hannie, Truus, and Freddie, which were Dutch resistance heroines of World War II. Polderman knew the Truus sisters for over 20 years and worked closely with them for over a decade as a board member of the National Hannie Schaft Foundation. So, this wasn't somebody that just did research on the sisters. This was somebody that knew them intimately and personally.
That's awesome.
That's
And
even better.
yeah, the second one is Kathryn J. Atwood's Women Heroes of World War II, 32 stories of espionage, sabotage, resistance, and rescue. So that's a detailed collection.
I'm definitely going to get copies of these books.
Yeah.
That's a detailed collection of all the female heroes of World War II.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely have to get a copy of that because obviously, we intend to keep this podcast going as long as possible. So we want to tell the stories about all these amazing women, and especially with the climate now, like knowing that we need to like recognize, like know that these things happened, especially when we have someone like Elon Musk trying to justify it now or whatever. I don't even know. Elon Musk being Elon Musk. I don't even know what to say about that.
Musky.
The muskrat. So when people are trying to deny that this shit happened or like say, oh, it wasn't really as bad as we're saying, like, yes, it was. And to keep telling these stories.
Oh.
I think you're muted, Jordan.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was pulling up a video that I wanted to show both of you.
Oh.
Hello? Well, you could finish your point. Well, now both of you are muted.
That's awesome.
Bad bitches.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then one more.
All right. Mm-hmm. If it wants to play.
Oh, is it not playing?
No.
Okay.
It's just loading on our end.
Oh, okay. One sec. Sometimes if I turn off
Oh,
my
okay.
camera, it works better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it was playing for a second.
I will share my screen. This will work.
Okay.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect.
Echoes of World War II resonate with tales of bravery, but none quite like the Dutch Oversteegen sisters. Barely in their teens, Truus and Freddie become the youngest female resistance fighters. Their mission? Disrupt Nazi operations. Their method? Deception. Posing as innocent schoolgirls, they'd lure enemy soldiers into the woods, only to be met by resistance fighters. These girls weren't just delivering information, they were delivering justice. Their courage, a beacon in the darkest of times. From blowing up bridges to saving Jewish children, the Oversteegen sisters showed that heroes come in all ages. Remember, history isn't just dates and battles, it's the extraordinary stories of ordinary people. The Oversteegen sisters, proof that bravery knows no age. This was Adam Zane for World History Explored. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is how AI optimizes
AI?
my schedule.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Fuck AI.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I loved hearing the story. This was like great. What a badass couple of sisters.
Yeah, for real, right? Like it's
Love
crazy
it.
what they did and for how young they were.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. Awesome. Is that what we got for the videos today? Because I wanted to kind of point people in your direction and whatnot. Do you have anything else you wanted to touch on before we end our call for the day? Or
I don't think so. I think that was pretty much it. I didn't want to talk about
well,
Hani because we're doing a whole episode on that, and I didn't want to give anything away.
yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you know a little bit. So, because I definitely read ahead of time before we looked into this, like what you had going down, and I've started doing my stuff for Hani, but I'm really excited to talk about her next week. So for our next episode, that'll be really fun. And then Kate has the episode after that. We're going to be dropping these a little bit quicker than usual. But I wanted to let people know too that we're releasing this under the Bad Bitch segment on all of our normal platforms, but we're also having Jordan release this uncensored, so you can yeah, I can't talk all of a sudden. You can hear all of our fuck ups.
Yeah.
But you get to see us on video. And Jordan, tell everybody how they'll be able to like watch 805 Uncensored, where they can connect with you online, as well as where they can watch the unedited version of this podcast.
Yeah, so the unedited version will be on my YouTube channel at 805 Uncensored Pod. If you are an audio listener, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much all the major platforms. If you want to reach out to me, have a question, I recommend DMing me on Instagram, also at 805 Uncensored Pod. And if you have any like guest suggestions, episode ideas, feel free to reach out. I'm always open to new things.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. What a great episode today, Jordan. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited about doing this collaboration and seeing where we can go in the future with it too.
Yeah, me too. And me and Craig are super happy to have both of you on the network.
Yeah, we're just happy to be on it too and just connect. I'm having so much fun connecting with everybody now. Like it's really great to know that we have people, you know, kind of feeling how we're feeling, having the same, you know, desires. Building the community.
Yes. Community is absolutely opposed to capitalism. And
yes, it is.
Capitalism thrives in isolation.
Exactly. That's what they want, is they want the individual to just worry about themselves, the very tribal culture of like only caring about people directly next to you and being completely disconnected from the, you know, the collective.
Yeah, and I like what you both touched on in one of your recent episodes about the news cycle and how they just want to throw everything at you so that you become complacent.
Yeah. It's meant to overwhelm
you.
And, finding joy in these dark times is a form of resistance too. Like, you still need to we still need to disengage from all the awfulness so that we can, have our community, have fun, still, be able to support each other in those ways too.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And we'll talk to you next week. And we'll talk to you next week. And until then, stay bad, bitches.
Stay bad, bitches. Stay bad, Jordan.
Stay bad, Jordan.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! All right, I'm done recording now. But yeah, thanks.